Cape Town is one of the biggest tourist destinations in the world, and there are quite a variety of things to do in the city. From hiking to museums to nature reserves, Cape Town has it all. That's why we decided to put this list together for you, from Cape Town's cheapest to a little bit more expensive things to do. Let's see what we got up to. Let's start off with some of the free activities. Luckily for us, Table Mountain is probably one of the only national parks in the country where you don't have to pay to gain access. So we went up Platteklip Gorge, which is the most direct route you can take up Table Mountain. It's basically just like climbing a whole bunch of stairs for a couple hours. But once you're on top, you get some amazing views of Cape Town and the Atlantic Ocean. Just be aware that anytime the weather is relatively good on Table Mountain, there will be lots and lots of people. But this is generally fine. The vibe is always lacquer up there, with many people just chilling and taking in the sun. Now, we actually used a different method to get off of the mountain, but we'll show you that a little bit later. But for now, let's move on to our next free thing, which is hiking Lion's Head. Now, Lion's Head, as is Table Mountain, probably one of the most iconic hikes in the city. And the great thing about this is that it's also free. There are also a lot of ladders to climb for those that feel a little bit more adventurous. But most importantly, it's really important to look at the weather. We got the timing wrong and it kind of ruined our view when we got to the top, but the hike was still really fun. Just be aware that this is also a very well-known hike, so there's always lots of other people on the trail. However, something that's not so well known about Cape Town is that there are actually free walking tours offered all around the city. We went and we did one of those free walking tours. I mean, technically it's not free, it works on a donation basis, but we went and we did a tour of the Boerkop, which was really cool. It's one of the most famous suburbs in the city. On top of that, I just want to remind people that you will be walking into another community. Those pictures that you're taking are actually pictures of people's houses, so just be respectful. We found it a little bit weird that our guide wasn't from the community, but overall it was still a really enjoyable activity. And here's a section of the Berlin Wall. Super random, but still pretty cool. The second last thing you can do for completely free in Cape Town is head over to Table View at sunset and have an amazing view of the mountain. Usually we accompany this with a drink of some sort. My favorite is always a milkshake, and then you just chill there until the sun goes down. It's pretty simple. Now, the last thing you can do for free in Cape Town is a little bit cheeky. You can head over to Boulders Beach and you can actually walk along the reserve on this boardwalk. And here you can see lots of cute rock hyraxes, or dassies as we call them, and a lot of the African penguins, who are obviously the stars of the show. And the cool thing is you can get pretty close to both the penguins and the dassies. And here you can take lots of cute pictures of them, like this guy. If you really want to, you can pay a fee to gain access to the reserve, where you basically walk on a boardwalk on the beach. Here you can see them swimming in the ocean and just waddling around on the beach. They're not very good at walking, so it's always really funny. But Boulders Beach can be very crowded, so if you really want to pay to see penguins, rather go to Stony Point Nature Reserve. It's a little bit outside of Cape Town, but I think it's definitely more worth it. Now that does it for the free activities you can do in Cape Town. Let's move on to the ones you have to pay for. We'll kick it off with the South African Museum. Now, this museum is part of the Iziko Museums, and it houses a lot of the natural history of South Africa, as well as some of the human history, and also a current exhibition on human evolution and a little bit of focus on racism and social inequality. Next up, we have the Castle of Good Hope, which is the oldest building in the country that's still standing, and it's a must visit for all South Africans. Then you can pop over to the Slave Lodge Museum. This is probably one of the weirdest museums I've ever been to. The theme wasn't completely clear, but I must say it had one of the best armor and weapons collections I've ever seen, which was obviously my favorite section. At this point, you're probably tired of all the walking you've been doing, so it's time to jump in your car and go for a drive on Chapman's Peak. I don't think there is a more scenic drive in Cape Town, with views of the Atlantic Ocean on one side and dramatic cliff faces on the other. There are also lots of places where you can stop, where you can get some photos taken for your new WhatsApp profile picture. Then it's time for another museum, and you can go to the Holocaust and Genocide Museum next to the Company Gardens. This was a really good museum and I recommend it to everyone. It was really well laid out and very informative. Next up, we have Kirstenbosch, which houses indigenous plants from all over South Africa, and there are also lots of beautiful walks you can do in the gardens. Now, just a disclaimer, some of the places I do mention, the price does differ if you do not come from South Africa. So if you are watching this as an international, just be aware and go double check this on all of the websites I will provide. Now, one of my favorite walks to do in Kirstenbosch is to actually go and walk on the contour path. This gives you beautiful views of the southern suburbs of Cape Town and also some really cool waterfalls. Now, keeping in theme with nature reserves, next up we've got the Cape Point Nature Reserve. Now, after you've paid your entry fee, head on over to the Buffelsfontein Tourism Centre. Here they have an exhibition on the history of mankind on the continent of Africa. It's done really well, and the best thing is it won't cost you anything extra to go into this exhibit. Now from here you can go further south along the peninsula towards Cape Point. Now once again, this is a very popular tourist destination, so just be aware, and I would also recommend taking along your own drinks and lunch with, because the shops there will be very expensive. I would avoid the restaurant altogether if you wanted to save some bucks. Now a lot of people are going to tell you this is the most southern point of Africa. Those people are wrong. The actual most southern point of Africa is actually 300 kilometers further east of this location. Now we've only got a couple things left on our list, and if you remember correctly, I wanted to show you how we got off Table Mountain, and that's actually the next thing I'm going to show you. So the best way to have the full Table Mountain experience, in my opinion, is to hike up and then take the cable car down. This obviously both benefits your pocket and your health. Just be aware you're going to be in some tight spaces with a lot of people, so this is not for the claustrophobic.
You're making me claustrophobic.
What does claustrophobic mean?
It means he's afraid of Santa Claus.
No, it doesn't.
Even though this cable car system has been here since 1929, it has gotten quite a few updates. At the moment, the floor of the cable car actually revolves. It gives everybody a nice 360 view as they make their way down. And I would recommend trying to find the closest parking to the cable car, but that's easier said than done. And now, the last thing on our list was something that's been on our bucket list for a very long time. We were getting on a boat to go to Robben Island. Now, our boat was delayed, but fortunately for Jessie, she's always prepared with her Kindle nearby. Now, after a little while, the boat finally arrived. This boat is called Kretua, and it can take about 125 people on it. Now, I'm curious to know when they actually cancel these boat trips because of the weather, because we went out in some very skeptical conditions. I mean, just look at this. No? Shit. And after what felt like several hours, we were finally back on land. And I felt really sorry for our tour guide, because everybody was so seasick and not keen at all. After a short bus ride, you get transported to the main prison complex, and it's really cool here. You actually get a tour from an ex-political prisoner that was actually imprisoned here on Robben Island. After being shown some of the common spaces, you are taken to some of the prison cells, one of which being Nelson Mandela's prison cell, and it's crazy to think that he spent 18 years of his life in such a small space. And then, after you've explored some of the other cells, you get ushered back towards the boat where you'll make your trip back towards Cape Town. So it was mainly the tour guide that made the Robben Island experience for us unforgettable. He was a really cool and interesting guy, and he did his job really well. The island wasn't that interesting, but I'm pretty sure weather played a big part of that. And it also didn't help that we were so seasick when we arrived there. If you've made it to this part in the video, we want to say thank you so much. We really enjoy bringing you this content. If you want to see what else we get up to, please consider subscribing. And as always, I'll leave links in the video description below. And if you feel there's any other activities in Cape Town that you felt I missed, please let us know in the comments. And maybe one day we'll get to try them out. See you next time. Can't really see anything out this window. It's all fogged up now. No? Shit. What did you guys?
It's only 45 minutes more.